Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I've got a eye art for you. It's quite something different than what I usually do, but it really felt like painting something very intricate and small on my eyelid today. Yeah. If you don't want to go for something this intricate, then you can also just keep it at this look. I'm going to show you both the normal eye look and the eye art thing. If you want to see more tutorials, by the way, you can always subscribe to my channel. I do 2 makeup videos per week and then 1 other random video, which can basically be anything. Yeah. And for now, let's get started on this. I'm just starting off with a crease shade here, just a transition shade. I'm using the Jawbreaker palette. Of course, if you don't have this palette or whatever, then you can obviously use something else. Basically, the colors we'll need is a transition shade, a brow bone highlight, a brownish sand shade, maybe a shimmer highlighter, I'm not sure yet. And a few shades of blue. But yeah, nothing too out of the ordinary. So yeah. But I'm just using this both to set the eye primer in place. And also to make sure that blending just goes a little bit easier. And I'm gonna do this on both of the eyes. Then it's time to add some blue. I'm gonna start off with quite a pale shade. And just put it in the outer corner here. And into the crease. I'm using a slightly smaller brush for this because I don't want this to go all over the other color I've already put down. But I do want it to be, you know, there, like when I'm looking straight forward, I'm gonna do a cut crease. So when looking straight forward is kind of important that you can actually still see the color, especially with an eye art, because otherwise it's just not going to be as visible what exactly it's supposed to be. So yeah. Making sure of a nice opaque color there. Then time to darken it up a little. I'm using the same brush and a darker shade of blue. And this time I'm really trying to keep it at the outer half of the crease. And I am obviously blending it out because I'm trying to like sort of create a dark sky. But you know, a nicely like even in color and ombre, gradient, whatever sky. Yeah. That makes sense. Anyway, so I'm using the same brush, but I'm using it carefully just so I don't get the color, you know, too far. Just want to intensify it a bit. Now I'm just darkening up the cut crease line a little bit using a pencil brush and a very dark shade of blue. Near black. And I'm just carefully blending it inward, like I want the cut crease to be fully there. But I don't want it to be too dark in the inner corner. And I'm also using the very same pencil brushes to blend it out, because it's tiny and yet it's a good blending brush. So this is just gonna allow me to blend it out without having it go too far. It's one of those things you gotta take your time with, because it's easier to apply something than to take something away with makeup. So yeah, just make sure you don't apply too much at once. Okay, so far so good. I'm just applying a very pale matte brow bone highlight now. And then I'm going to go over it with a big fluffy blender without any extra product one more time to get it all as smooth as possible. So, we've had the easy part, now it's time to go on to the tougher bits. Yeah, basically I'm going to do a cut crease now, and on this eye is basically going to be a round thing, because it's supposed to be the ground on which the lighthouse is going to stand. On this eye is going to be a normal cut crease, because there is just supposed to be an eye look. By the way, I'm honestly kind of surprised at myself for not having done a, totally forgot on which side of the brush the product was. Anyway, a eye look, like an eye art of a lighthouse before, because I really love how lighthouses look. And I have done it in a nail art twice, one of which is actually, I'm pretty sure, also a YouTube tutorial. And the other one I think I did before I even had a YouTube channel, so yeah. But yeah, I've always loved the sea and boats and ships. Like, before my dad retired, he was actually a, I'm not sure what it's called in English, but he drew ships at like a shipyard and all, and like, you know, to get them be built and all. So yeah, I've always loved ships and the sea, and like lighthouses just have this sort of I don't know, there's something about like the lonely lighthouse standing there that I just really like. Also, there's a lot of cool horror stories about lighthouses, which I also like, so yeah. But anyway, so what do you do as makeup artist then? You go paint it on your eyelids, obviously. Now basically, like this side is winged out, this side is the island, but both are going to get sort of the same basic color. I'm starting off with a gold shade because even though this is supposed to be sand, well, you know, I still want it to look pretty because it's not a painting, it's an eye look. So basically what I did here as well is just go around the edge and into the inner corner to highlight the inner corner. And also highlight the edge of the cut crease. Because more contrast looks better. And also this is just going to make sure that the entire island idea is just going to look a little bit more highlighted, I guess. Like the edge of the highland. Huh? Like the edge of the island is actually lightened by the lightning that I'm going to add later. Rather than it just being one solid color, because that wouldn't be very realistic. And on the other eye is just going to be a nice sort of ombre thing. Okay, I was gonna go for like a very dark sandy brown, but I decided to go for nude shade instead, just because I feel like otherwise on me it would just be too dark and that just doesn't look right on me. So I'm going for this instead. So yeah, just, you know, imagine very warm toned sand or something. And also obviously make sure to blend it together properly with the highlight. Now we're on to the final part of the, well actually after that the bottom eyelid is going to be easy too, but like, yeah, we're just going to do something relatively more difficult yet still quite easy to get into the swing of things before going on to the real difficult part. I'm going to do an eyeliner with a gel liner because on the other eye I'm also going to use a gel liner because a gel liner can be blended and a liquid liner cannot be blended. Or at least you probably could manage it, but it wouldn't be very easy. So yeah, but on this eye I'm just going to make a nice wing with it. And then we move on to the difficult part. Okay, so here we are. For the next part you will need a, well, the gel liner again, a tiny little eyeliner brush, a steady hand and a lot of patience. I'm kind of lacking in that last thing. But anyway, I'll try to manage. So yeah, let's get on with the difficulty. The eyeliner has to be, you know, it has to be there, but it has to be by no means perfect. By no means does it have to be perfect, would be normal grammar. Anyway, because I still gotta do the face, and so I'll just fix it up in a moment with foundation and concealer and stuff at the bottom. And at the top I'm going to blend it, so yeah. Basically, as long as it's there, it's alright. I am trying to keep it thin, which is always a challenge to me. Because I don't want it to be too overpowering. I just want it to be a detail and not be the hugest, you know, part of the look, obviously. Then once the eyeliner is to my liking, I'm just making the base of the waves, basically. Try to keep the wing the longest, you know, the actual furthest away from the inner corner wave. And yeah, I'm just creating some lines upwards. Doesn't need to be neat because I'm going to blend them out in a moment. Just, you know, make them be there, and then I'm just waving. Basically the easiest way to do this is just pushing the brush horizontally over the waves. Basically that's just easier to watch than to hear me explain probably. But yeah, it just goes a bit smudgy that way, and then I'm going to apply some blue on top of it. I'm picking a true blue shade here, not the darkest blue, because I feel like the darkest blue would make it too dark. And I really want the color to be there, because I want to be, you know, I want to make sure that everyone can see that there are waves of water. I'm also adding some face paint here, just to make it look as if there's actually some foam on top of the waves as well. If you don't have face paint, of course, for this part, you can also use stuff like a liquid eyeliner, liquid eye primers, that sort of thing, you know, gel liners in colors, whatever you have. I do feel like face paint is the easiest thing to work with though, personally. But if you just want to try this out and you don't want to invest in face paint, body paint, however you want to call it, then, you know, go for something else if you do have. But yeah, here I'm just adding some clouds with just the cloud method that was like really in fashion a while back. You know, just put down the brush and drag it and then you have a cloud eventually. Just keep it easy. Then the difficult part. This is a brush with basically 3 hairs left. And I'm using it now to make some thunder, or rather lightning. If you're going to do something like this, you're gonna need a brush with very, very little hair. This brush originally came from eBay and I basically chopped all the hair off except for like 3 hairs in the center. I really recommend doing that with an eBay brush, or you know, like a very cheap brush. This one came in a set of 12 brushes for like $1.99, so it was ridiculously cheap. Don't do this with an expensive Sigma brush or something, because that would be a waste. You know, just use a very cheap brush for this, if you're going to chop it down. And I do recommend chopping it down, because the thinner you want to go, well, it's just easier if you have a very thin brush to begin with. And also, I'm not adding too much lightening because I don't want it to be too overcrowded. Then for the lighthouse, if you've ever watched my nail art tutorials, I'm basically doing the same thing now. I don't actually have a picture or anything of a lighthouse with me, because a lighthouse is pretty basic, so I don't really feel like I need a reference picture. But whenever I paint without a reference picture, I always just make the vague shape first, so I sort of know what I'm doing before I continue with the details. It's just a bit easier. And I decided to go for the you know, basically the candy cane lighthouse. I feel like if you're going to paint something very, very tiny, you want it to be as easily recognizable as possible. So I didn't want to go for a fully metallic one, which is why I'm painting red stripes on my lighthouse now, rather than going for full grey or a metallic sheen. Just because this really makes it look like a lighthouse, even from a distance, which is kind of nice. Also touching up the white a little. By the way, in case you didn't notice yet, I'm filming this part, or at least I'm doing this part in voiceover. I do recommend, if you're going to try this as well, to not talk while you're doing this. Like, don't talk, don't make any facial expressions, look as lifeless and like emotionless as possible. Because the more still you keep your face, the easier it will be. If you move your face while doing this, it's going to be very difficult, and it's really not all that easy to begin with, so there's really no need to make it more difficult than it needs to be. I'm just adding some brown to the fence around the top part of the lighthouse, just to make it, you know, stand out more from the rest of the top of it. The more detail you add, the more realistic it'll get. I'm also adding a little bit of shading for that reason. I'm using the dark blue eyeshadow for that. And be careful not to apply too much, because otherwise the entire white part is going to be blue all of a sudden, and that's not what I want. But yeah, I'm just adding a little bit of shading because it makes everything a little bit more lifelike. Yeah, which is a good thing. And now I'm just adding some windows and a door so that the lighthouse keepers, which I didn't paint, so yeah. But let's just assume there's lighthouse keepers so they can actually get in and out of the lighthouse. And now we're going to move on to the scary part, which is the outline. That is the scariest part to me, at least. Like, this is the part in which you don't want to make any mistakes. Take your time with this. Make sure your paint is not too wet so you don't get drips. Make sure you don't have too much paint on your brush so you won't get smudges. And just be careful. Like, no pressure or anything, but if you make a mistake with the black outline, then it's just going to be a disaster. So be careful. So now we just gotta add some light to the actual lighthouse. I'm just dotting it on here with white paint first, and yeah, I'm just using a more hairy eyeliner brush. That sounds weird, but still. You know, like, you want a stippling brush really, but they don't make stippling brushes this small, so I went for a more dispersed eyeliner brush, I guess. Some yellow as well to make it a more warm glow. And now I'm just outlining the clouds a little bit more, because I feel like without the outline they just sort of look like very not blended eyebrow highlight at this point, which is not what I want. So yeah, just adding some outline to make them stand out a little bit more. And at that point you basically have all the difficult stuff done, and the painting is finished for now. So it's like 5 hours later now, and I've eaten lunch and also done my face. So yeah, we can immediately move back to the eyeballs. And I'm gonna start off with making my waterline black. And then keeping it simple, I'm just going to add a little bit of the very dark blue, almost black eyeshadow beneath it. I don't want this to be too smoky, I just want something to be there, and that's it. And then for the inner corner highlight, I'm starting off actually with an off-white shade, the same shade I used in my on my brow bone earlier. To make it nice and pale already, and of course blending it a little bit. And then I'm going to go into the highlighter that I also use on my face, which is a icy blue one. And yeah, this is going to give the shimmer, but with the pale shade underneath it is just going to really be blinding. Now I'm just going to apply a little bit of lash glue on one single eyelash. I'm only going to put an eyelash on this eye, because I just spent like, you know, half a century putting paint on my other eye, and I don't want to cover it with false hair. As you can see, simple, natural, not too much, but just a little bit more. And then time for mascara. Obviously right now do be careful to not hit the eyelid with the mascara wand, like as usually you can just remove it with a cotton pad or Q-tip, cotton tip, you know what I mean. But this time around it will be very difficult to fix if you get it on the painting, so yeah, be careful. And then finally, a century later, we're done with the entire eye look. So yeah, I'm just gonna add a nude lipstick and some setting spray, and we can go on to the review. And that leaves us with the final results. As always, I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. And if you did enjoy it, please click the like button. It would really help me out. For now, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I hope to see you next time. Bye!